Ever been in a room full of chatter, where everyone's talking over each other, but you're just listening? Not because you have nothing to say, but because you're seeing something more. You're hearing not just the words, but the tone behind them, the pauses, the little shifts in energy. You're watching how the light changes the room, how the air feels, how everyone's feeling without saying it. You're not ignoring the world. You're observing it in a way that's almost instinctual, as if your mind has its own rhythm that doesn't always match the noise around you. That's what being a deep thinker feels like. It's not about being shy or disconnected. It's about having a rich inner world that's constantly at work, running beneath the surface. It's about knowing that every moment holds more than meets the eye, and every conversation can be a doorway into 100 different thoughts. When you're a deep thinker, your mind doesn't just exist in the present. It's constantly analysing, reflecting, making connections. So, when the world rushes by, you don't always rush with it. You stay back, you watch, you absorb, you listen. You might be the person who takes a little longer to answer a question, not because you don't know the answer, but because you're already calculating a dozen different ways to respond, considering how each one might land, how it fits into the bigger picture. You're not stalling, you're letting your mind connect the dots, something most people don't even realise is happening. You can take one conversation, one small glance, and turn it into an entire universe of thought. It's a kind of magic, but it's also a burden. See, not everyone gets it. People will look at you and assume you're just quiet or indifferent, but they don't realise the depth of what's going on inside. They mistake your silence for disinterest when in fact, you're gathering a universe of understanding from just a few words, from the smallest of details. You're not ignoring life, you're feeling it in a way that's beyond words, beyond surface-level reactions. Think about how many times you've sat in a conversation, silently picking apart the unspoken layers. What did they mean by that look? What's behind that pause in their voice? It's like you can hear the unsaid words between their sentences. You notice what others miss. The subtle shifts, the emotional undercurrents, the things that make up the true essence of what's being communicated. And it's not just in conversations, it's everywhere. The way a tree bends towards the sun, the pattern of ripples in water, the way people shift in their seats when they're uncomfortable. Deep thinkers don't just see the obvious, they see the unseen. This ability to observe, to pause, to reflect, is often misunderstood. People might think it's awkwardness or a lack of social skills, but in reality, it's something far more complex. It's an internal dance, a constant process of gathering and sorting through information, not just from the external world, but from the feelings, the undercurrents, the tiny details that tell a bigger story. When you're a deep thinker, the world is never just what it seems. Everything holds layers. Everything is meaningful, even the things that go unnoticed. Have you ever tried to stop thinking? To just switch it off, even for a minute? It's like trying to hold your breath. You can do it for a while, but eventually, you have to exhale. For deep thinkers, thinking isn't a choice. It's like breathing. It's how they process the world. It's what gives their existence meaning. You can't shut it off. It's not a problem that needs solving. It's just how they live. Imagine walking through a park, and you don't just see the trees, the sky, the people. You feel them too. You're not just admiring the way the sunlight falls through the leaves. You're wondering about the patterns in the shadows, how the tree's roots anchor deep into the earth, how the wind whispers through the branches, and how all of it seems to mirror your own journey through life. Every detail is a thread, and your mind is the loom, weaving it all into a bigger story. That's what deep thinkers do. They can turn a single moment into a whole universe of thought. And they're never not thinking. It's not about intelligence, it's a sensitivity. While others might just see a tree and move on, deep thinkers see the tree's entire existence, from the soil that feeds it to the way it reaches for the sky. They find meaning in the way the leaves fall, the cracks in the bark, and the way the branches twist. This sensitivity, this constant processing of the world, is both a gift and a burden. The mind of a deep thinker doesn't shut down when they're tired. It doesn't stop when they're in a crowd. It doesn't rest when life gets chaotic. It's always running, weaving connections, analysing, reflecting, questioning. You've probably found yourself lost in your own thoughts more times than you care to count. Maybe you're sitting at a cafe, staring out the window, and suddenly the world just fades away. People are talking, but your mind is elsewhere, diving deep into some random thought, dissecting every angle, thinking about it from all perspectives. What does this moment really mean? How does it tie into everything else? What's the deeper purpose behind this? And what if you miss it? It's not an intentional choice, it's simply what your mind does. It needs to breathe, it needs to process, it needs to understand. And that's the thing. For a deep thinker, thinking isn't just something they do, it's something they are. When they stop thinking, they feel like they stop living. It's in those pauses, those quiet moments, that they get their best ideas. And it's not always about coming up with the next brilliant insight. Sometimes it's about connecting dots that no one else sees. It's about understanding how the universe fits together, even in its messiest, most chaotic parts. For deep thinkers, thinking is more than just analysing. It's about feeling. When they think about something, they feel it on a deeper level. They understand not just the facts, but the underlying emotions, the motivations, the subtle things that are often ignored. Their minds are storming with connections, constantly looking for the invisible threads that tie everything together. It's exhausting, but it's how they make sense of the world. And when they find those connections, when they discover the beauty in the details, it feels like a breath of fresh air. But here's the paradox. While thinking brings deep, thinkers' clarity, it can also make life feel overwhelming. Every new idea brings more questions, more possibilities, and sometimes it feels like there's no end to it. So they think and think and think some more. It's a never-ending cycle, a rhythm that's always present in their mind. And sometimes it's too much. They wish they could switch it off, just for a moment. But the brain of a deep thinker doesn't know how to stop breathing. There's a quiet obsession that deep thinkers have with the world around them. It's not that they're dissatisfied with what they see, but that they're always trying to uncover what lies beneath. While others might glance at a tree and move on, deep thinkers can't help but wonder, how does the tree bend toward the light? What roots anchor it into the soil? What invisible forces shape its growth? For them, every part of existence holds meaning waiting to be uncovered. And that search for meaning is as natural as breathing. To a deep thinker, every moment feels like an invitation to dig deeper. A conversation becomes more than just an exchange of words. It's an exploration of emotions, motivations, and the complexities behind every sentence. A simple silence between two people isn't just a pause, it's a question, a riddle to be solved. The way someone shifts in their seat, the way their eyes wander, the tone of their voice, it all has a story to tell. And for deep thinkers, understanding that story is like solving a puzzle that feels too important to ignore. But here's the thing. This constant need to understand isn't about overanalyzing or being overly critical. It's about seeing the unseen. The world is full of layers, and deep thinkers are always peeling them back, trying to find the truth beneath the surface. It's why they're never satisfied with simple answers. For them, the why is the key to unlocking everything. They need to know why things happen, why people act the way they do, why they feel the way they do. This unquenchable thirst for meaning is like an internal compass, guiding them through the complexities of life. This drive to search for meaning isn't confined to big, philosophical questions. It's in the small things too. Have you ever found yourself sitting at a cafe, listening to someone speak, and instead of just hearing their words, you're already thinking about the layers behind them? Why did they choose those words? What was the emotion that triggered them? What are they really trying to say? Deep thinkers don't just hear what's spoken, they listen to the spaces between the words, the silence, the hesitation, the unspoken truths. Everything holds meaning for them, even the things left unsaid. And while this ability can be beautiful and insightful, it's also a burden. Because when you're constantly seeking meaning, not everything makes sense immediately. Sometimes, deep thinkers are left with more questions than answers. The mind never stops. Each thought leading to another, each idea sprouting more possibilities, more angles to explore, and that can create a constant loop of overthinking, a mental merry-go-round of what-ifs and maybes. It's exhausting, but it's how their minds process the world. They can't just accept things at face value. They need to understand why. But there's beauty in this endless search. It's what leads to creativity, to art, to profound realizations. Deep thinkers have a way of seeing connections that others miss, of pulling threads from all over their lives and weaving them into new ideas, new perspectives. Their minds are always at work, crafting meaning from the world around them. And while this search might never fully be satisfied, it gives their life depth. It gives them something to reach for, something to always keep exploring. Living in the deep end comes with its own set of challenges. For deep thinkers, the beauty of their mind lies in its complexity. It's as if they see the world through a magnifying lens. Everything feels richer, layered, filled with meaning, but that's also where the danger lies. Too often, their depth leads to overcomplication. Where others find simplicity, deep thinkers find a puzzle to solve, a nuance to explore, an implication to examine. What seems straightforward can quickly become a labyrinth of thoughts. Take a conversation, for example. While most people are happy with the exchange of words, deep thinkers hear every nuance. The way a sentence is paused, the slight change in someone's voice, the energy behind the words. They notice everything. But instead of just accepting the conversation for what it is, their mind begins to dissect it. Did I say enough? Did I say too much? What did they mean by that? Should I have phrased that differently? It's a continuous cycle of revisiting, replaying, rethinking, all because their mind refuses to leave things at face value. It's like being trapped in a loop that keeps them analysing every layer until they lose sight of the bigger picture. And it doesn't stop at conversations. Deep thinkers process everything this way. Every look, every gesture, every moment holds layers of meaning that they feel compelled to uncover. They're not just living in the world, they're trying to understand its inner workings. It's like watching the world unfold under a microscope, looking for connections that others miss. And while that's an extraordinary gift, it comes with its costs. The deeper they dive, the harder it becomes to find the surface. They often find themselves lost in thought, unable to let go of the endless analysis. It's exhausting. The depth of their thinking sometimes becomes a burden, one that takes them away from the simplicity of just being. This isn't to say they overthink because they're insecure or fearful. Far from it. They overthink because they feel the weight of every decision, every word, every action. They see the potential in every moment, and they want to fully understand it. The issue arises when their thoughts start spiraling, becoming more about possibilities than realities. The constant search for deeper meaning can make them feel like they're trying to solve a mystery that has no end. There's always something more to uncover, always another thread to pull. And while that can lead to profound insights and creativity, it can also create a sense of being overwhelmed, as if no answer is ever fully satisfying. It's in these moments that the price of depth becomes clear. It's not just about seeing more, it's about the toll it takes to constantly look beneath the surface, to feel everything so intensely that it can sometimes feel like too much. Deep thinkers are often stuck in a paradox. They want to understand everything, yet they can never fully escape the complexity that understanding brings. In their quest for truth, they may lose sight of the joy of just living in the moment. The balance between seeking answers and embracing the simple beauty of life is a difficult one to strike. And it's why deep thinkers often need to retreat, to reset, to reconnect with the world in a way that isn't filtered through layers of thought. But in the end, this struggle is what makes their thinking so powerful. It's also what makes their world so much richer. Every moment, every conversation, every feeling holds infinite depth for those willing to see it. Imagine constantly being aware of your own thoughts, not just thinking, but thinking about your thinking. This is the world deep thinkers live in. They don't just experience the flow of thoughts, they step outside it, observing themselves from the outside. It's like watching a movie about your life while you're in it, seeing every scene, every decision, every emotion unfold with clarity, and sometimes with confusion. This isn't just overthinking, it's meta-cognition, the ability to think about your own thinking. For deep thinkers, this is a constant backdrop to their lives. They're never just living in the moment. They're dissecting it, rearranging it, analysing the way their mind processes things. And this process doesn't stop. It's a 24/7 mental workout, and it's what fuels their self-awareness. But it's also what can trip them up. While most people are just living their lives, deep thinkers can't help but ask, why did I react that way? Why did I say that? What does this really mean? The cycle doesn't stop, even when they wish it would. The question, what am I thinking, isn't just a passing curiosity, it's a persistent need to understand themselves better, to make sense of their own mental landscape. Deep thinkers aren't satisfied with surface-level answers. They want to know why they think what they think, why they feel what they feel. This constant analysis isn't a sign of insecurity or weakness. It's their way of navigating the complexities of the world, by first understanding themselves. It's not that they're lost in a maze of endless self-reflection, though sometimes it may feel that way. It's more that their minds can't help but pull at the threads of their emotions, their desires, their actions, trying to understand where they came from. Every thought becomes an opportunity for exploration. Every feeling is a puzzle. They may think, why do I care about this person so much? Or, why did that song make me feel so nostalgic? They don't just live with the feeling. They analyse its roots, trying to understand the deeper currents underneath it. And while that helps them develop incredible insights into themselves and others, it can sometimes be overwhelming. The problem is that metacognition can lead to constant self-scrutiny. When you're always observing your own thoughts, it's easy to become hyper-aware of your flaws, your contradictions, and your uncertainties. It can feel like you're always under a magnifying glass, every part of your mind exposed. And when you notice every imperfection, it's hard not to start doubting yourself. It's a tightrope walk between insight and self-doubt. But even in this self-questioning, deep thinkers find clarity. In observing their own mental patterns, they start to uncover truths about their behaviour, their motivations, and their past. They begin to understand why they're drawn to certain people, why they avoid certain situations, or why a particular memory continues to resurface. This self-awareness, while sometimes uncomfortable, gives them a sense of control over their own narrative. They're not just reacting to the world, they're actively interpreting it through the lens of their own thoughts. And the deeper they dig, the more they uncover. But this constant search for meaning within their own minds doesn't always come with easy answers. Sometimes, the more you dig, the more you realise how much you still don't understand. And that's the paradox of metacognition. It doesn't necessarily bring closure. It brings awareness, but it also leaves room for more questions. This process of thinking about thinking can lead to a profound understanding of themselves and others, but it can also leave deep thinkers feeling like they're in a never-ending cycle of introspection. It's like trying to find the end of a story that never quite finishes. But in this endless loop of thoughts, there's growth, there's evolution. Because while metacognition can feel exhausting, it's also the tool deep thinkers use to connect the dots between their emotions, their experiences, and their identity. Deep thinkers don't often feel lonely when they're alone. Instead, solitude is where they feel most themselves. It's like walking into a room that's been empty for so long that when you finally step inside, it feels like everything is waiting for you. The air is fresher, the walls seem to whisper your name, and the silence feels more like a presence than an absence. While others might see solitude as isolation, deep thinkers see it as a refuge, a place where their minds can finally breathe. It's not about avoiding people or withdrawing from the world. It's about reconnecting with their own thoughts, their own sense of self, in a way that's impossible when they're constantly surrounded by noise and other people's energy. When you're in a crowd, everything gets distorted, conversations are fragmented, emotions are scattered, and the world feels like it's constantly demanding your attention. But when deep thinkers step away from the noise, everything slows down. The world becomes clear again. It's like finding clarity in a world of distractions. Alone time allows them to untangle thoughts that have been buried beneath the surface, to process emotions that have been floating around without direction. It's their opportunity to hit the reset button, to return to themselves after being pulled in 100 different directions. The beauty of solitude for a deep thinker is in the space it provides for reflection. There's no need to explain or defend their thoughts. They can simply exist within them. Whether it's a walk alone, sitting by a window, or spending an evening with a journal, those moments of solitude are like sacred rituals. It's during these times that deep thinkers can truly hear the quiet hum of their own mind, where they can ask the questions they've been too distracted to ask. Why am I feeling this way? What do I really want from this situation? What did that experience mean to me? These questions float to the surface when they're finally able to sit in peace with themselves. But this solitude isn't about escaping, it's about returning. It's the space where deep thinkers get to tune out the world's demands and tune into their own inner rhythms. It's a space where they can process life in their own time, without the pressure to keep up with anyone else. And when they step back into the world, after their time alone, they bring a sense of calm and clarity with them that the rest of the world might have missed. For deep thinkers, solitude isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. It's how they make sense of the chaos, how they align their inner world with the outer one. But in a world that constantly celebrates busyness and social connection, their need for solitude can be misunderstood. People might see their time alone as a sign of loneliness or alienation, but deep thinkers know that in those moments of quiet, they're actually the most connected to themselves. The deeper their thoughts, the more they need this time to process them. It's not avoidance, it's restoration. And here's the paradox. Even though deep thinkers cherish their time alone, it's not because they don't value connection. It's quite the opposite. It's that when they connect, they want it to be real, meaningful, and deeply fulfilling. They crave relationships that aren't just filled with surface-level exchanges, but ones that dive deep into the heart of things. But before they can give that part of themselves to others, they need the solitude to reflect, to recharge, and to get grounded again. The quiet of solitude is where they come alive. It's where they reconnect with their essence. In a world that pulls us in every direction, they've learned that sometimes the bravest thing to do is to stand still, to embrace the silence, to sit with their thoughts long enough to understand them. And when they do step out into the world, it's with a sense of depth and understanding that only comes from having been fully present in their own solitude. For deep thinkers, emotions are never simple. They can't be. It's like looking at the world through a lens that magnifies everything. A fleeting moment of joy is felt with intensity, but so is sadness, fear, and even confusion. To them, emotions aren't just feelings, they're information. Each one is a message, a map of their inner landscape, and each one has layers that need to be understood. But that doesn't mean they enjoy feeling so much. In fact, it's one of the most exhausting aspects of their existence. Take joy, for example. For most people, joy is a bright, clear feeling, an immediate response to something delightful. But for a deep thinker, joy is tangled with gratitude, nostalgia, and even a little sadness. The joy of an afternoon spent with a loved one is not just about the pleasure of the moment, it's about recognizing how precious that moment is, how fleeting, how it'll be gone tomorrow. They feel the weight of time passing as they experience the joy. It's as if every emotion is like a song with multiple layers. Some notes are easy to hear, others are more subtle but no less important. And then there's sadness. When deep thinkers experience sadness, it's never just about the event itself. It's about why it hurts so much, what it reveals about them, and how it connects to everything else they've felt in their life. Every disappointment, every heartbreak is tied to memories of past hurts, the way the world has shifted for them, and the complexity of their own responses to it. Sadness becomes a door to 1,000 other emotions, all of which they can't help but explore. They feel it deeply, but it's not just about feeling it, it's about understanding it. Why does this sadness feel familiar? What is it trying to teach me about myself? Where is it rooted in my past? And the search for those answers can be just as exhausting as the sadness itself. But here's the paradox. Deep thinkers are often accused of being distant or unemotional, when in fact they feel everything too much. Their ability to see the deeper currents beneath their emotions often makes them look calm on the surface, but inside there's a storm brewing. They feel the weight of every small thing, the unspoken words in a conversation, the tone of someone's voice, the subtle shifts in a room's energy. They can pick up on everything, which makes life intensely beautiful, but also painfully overwhelming. At the same time, deep thinkers often find themselves unable to escape their emotions. They can't compartmentalize or push things down. Every feeling is like a wave that has to be experienced fully before it passes. They don't have the luxury of easily ignoring their emotions. Instead, they ride the waves, trying to understand why they're there and what they mean. It's a relentless cycle, a gift but also a burden. They can't just move on without first unraveling every thread of feeling, trying to understand the root of it all. And this makes the highs feel higher and the lows feel lower. There's no in between. But here's the twist. Deep thinkers are incredibly compassionate. Because of this very sensitivity, they're able to feel deeply for others too. They understand pain not just because they've experienced it, but because they can feel it as if it were their own. They see the world not in black and white, but in every shade of grey, and that gives them a profound empathy for the complexities of human nature. They don't see people as just happy or sad, good or bad. They see the stories behind the emotions. They can feel someone's sadness without them having to speak a word, and it's this capacity for empathy that makes them both insightful and deeply attuned to the emotional world around them. But this deep connection to emotion also means that deep thinkers are vulnerable. The more they feel, the more exposed they become to the pain of the world. It's why they need time to recharge, to process, to understand before they can return to the world with the same intensity. They don't just push emotions aside, they sit with them, reflect, and let them transform. They carry the weight of everything they feel, but they also carry the lessons learned from each experience. They know that joy and pain are two sides of the same coin, and to truly live, they must embrace both fully. The deepest thinkers often come across as melancholic or even distant, but this isn't because they're unable to feel, quite the opposite. They're often just trying to hold space for everything they feel and understand it before they share it with the world. It's their way of processing, and in doing so, they teach us that emotions are not to be avoided or minimized, but embraced and understood. There's a kind of loneliness that deep thinkers often experience, a unique isolation that comes from feeling too much in a world that seems too shallow. It's not loneliness born of a lack of people, but from a lack of connection. In crowded rooms, amidst conversations, deep thinkers often feel adrift. They're present, but their mind is miles away, processing, analysing, reflecting on what's being said and what's not being said. It's not that they don't want to engage, it's that their mind requires a depth of connection that most people aren't ready or able to give. Imagine standing in a crowd, surrounded by noise, but feeling like you're on the edge of it all, watching, listening, absorbing, but never quite in it. Deep thinkers crave connection, yes, but it's the kind of connection that dives beneath the surface. They want to understand people at their core, to explore the intricate layers of their emotions, their thoughts, their histories. But the world is too busy for that kind of connection. People move fast, conversations are rushed, and everyone seems to be looking for quick, superficial exchanges. Nothing that allows a deep thinker to stretch their mental muscles. And that's where the loneliness comes in. While others might find companionship in small talk or casual socializing, deep thinkers often feel like they're standing outside the conversation, watching as others swim in the shallow end, while they're stuck diving for something deeper that isn't there. It's a disconnection that can be exhausting. They might smile, nod, engage in a chat, but the moment the conversation drifts back to the surface level topics, the weather, the latest trends, the weekend plans, something inside them disengages. It's not that they don't care about those things, it's just that their mind isn't wired to connect with those topics in the same way. They crave depth, they crave meaning, and most people aren't interested in diving as deep as they want to. But deep thinkers don't just want to connect with anyone. They want to connect with people who see the world the way they do. It's like searching for a rare book in a library filled with bestsellers. They want conversations that challenge them, that force them to think, that leave them with questions rather than answers. They want to share their thoughts with someone who will listen and reflect back with just as much intensity, someone who doesn't just speak, but feels every word they say. The thing about loneliness for a deep thinker is that it's not always visible. They can sit in a room full of people and still feel utterly isolated. This isolation doesn't come from a lack of presence, it comes from a lack of emotional resonance. It's the silence that fills the gaps in conversations, the empty space between words that no one seems to notice. Deep thinkers are often aware of the nuances that others overlook, the subtle shifts in someone's voice, the barely perceptible changes in body language, the unspoken tension in the air. And while these things speak volumes to them, they don't always get the chance to share their observations, because most people are too caught up in the surface to notice the details that matter. This is where their vulnerability lies. Deep thinkers want to be seen, but they also need to feel understood. It's not enough for someone to hear their words. They want someone to hear their meaning. They want to be known for who they truly are, not just who they appear to be in the moment, but that requires a level of vulnerability that's difficult to share when they feel like no one is capable of reaching the depths they inhabit. Yet, in this isolation, deep thinkers often find a strange kind of peace. They learn to be comfortable in their own company. They accept that connection, for them, is a rare gift and not something that can be forced or rushed. They may walk alone, but in their solitude, they find clarity. In silence, they process the chaos of the world, sorting through the emotional noise to find something true, something that resonates. Solitude, for deep thinkers, is not an escape from the world. It's their way of returning to themselves, to ground their thoughts and emotions in a way that the world often doesn't allow. But still, even in their peace, deep thinkers carry the ache of wanting more. They long for a connection that feels like it matches the depth of their own inner world. And when they do find it, it's not something that happens overnight. They're selective, guarded. They observe first, waiting for someone who shows signs of being able to dive as deep as they can. Only then will they open up, allowing someone into the corners of their heart and mind. But when they do open that door, it's not halfway. It's all the way. They'll share everything. Their dreams, their fears, their memories, their deepest thoughts, because when they love, they do so fully, with an intensity that matches their inner world. But this love comes with a quiet understanding. Deep thinkers don't expect others to be the same as them. They don't need their partners, their friends, or their loved ones to think the same way they do. They just need them to understand that the depth they carry isn't something they can hide, something they can put away. It's who they are. It's how they experience the world. And in that understanding, they find connection. In that depth, they find love. For deep thinkers, silence isn't empty. It's full. It's a space where meaning breathes, where thoughts collect, and where the world can finally be understood on a deeper level. Imagine sitting in a room, hearing the hum of a distant conversation, the click of a clock on the wall, the rustle of leaves outside, yet feeling as if none of those sounds truly touch you. You're there, but you're somewhere else, inside your mind, where silence is both sanctuary and storm. The deep thinker often isn't in a hurry to fill silence with words. For them, it's in those quiet pauses where the truest conversations happen. They can sit with themselves, allowing their thoughts to evolve, twist and settle. Words have weight for deep thinkers. Every phrase, every sentence is carefully measured, carefully chosen. But sometimes it's the quiet between those words that says the most. It's in the pauses when their mind is filtering through layers of thought, deciding whether to speak, whether to share, or whether to leave the idea unspoken. This space between words can feel like an entire universe in itself, filled with meanings, implications, and unspoken truths. People who are always talking, always filling the silence, often miss it. They don't see that the quiet moments can be the most profound. But for deep thinkers, the silence gives them time to see. They hear things that aren't said, the emotions behind the words, the hidden meanings in gestures, the truth hiding in what's left unsaid. They know that what's not said is often just as important as what is. But here's the catch. Deep thinkers are often misunderstood in their silence. It's easy for others to assume that because they're quiet, they're disengaged, uninterested, or aloof. In reality, they're absorbing everything. They're listening not only to the words being spoken, but also to the unspoken tension in the room. The way someone's eyes flicker with doubt, or how their posture shifts when they talk about a sensitive topic. Deep thinkers live for those details, those small, subtle signals that reveal a person's true feelings. And when they don't speak, it's because they're processing, not because they don't care. This silence isn't an absence of communication. It's a different kind of communication, one that values depth over quantity. For deep thinkers, the world often feels like it's too loud. It's full of noise that distracts, that pulls attention away from what matters. They crave the space to think, to reflect, to be with their thoughts before offering them to the world. To them, silence is where clarity is born, where ideas take shape, and where understanding can be achieved without the pressure to constantly speak or explain. And yet it's not easy to exist in this silence. In a world that prizes noise, speed, and constant interaction, deep thinkers often find themselves at odds with the mainstream. There's a pressure to speak, to be social, to fit into the rhythms of the fast-moving world. But deep thinkers have learned that their value doesn't come from constant words or actions. It comes from the quiet, the time they spend reflecting, processing, and creating in the stillness of their own minds. But sometimes, even they wonder if it's worth it. They wonder if their silence makes them too distant, too hard to read. They wonder if people will ever understand that it's not that they're disengaged, it's that they are engaged in a way that others don't always see. It's not that they don't want to connect, it's that they connect differently. Their connection comes in moments of presence, in the way they listen deeply, in how they observe the world, in the way they process emotions not through quick reactions but through thoughtful consideration. In the silence, they find their truest selves, and when they speak, their words carry more meaning. But even when they are silent, deep thinkers are never truly alone. Their minds are always at work, making sense of the world, piecing together the puzzle of existence. They may not be talking, but their thoughts are always in motion. Their silence is full of meaning, waiting to be revealed in the right moment. And when deep thinkers find someone who can appreciate the quiet, who values the space between words, that's when the connection becomes real. That's when the silence isn't just absence, it's understanding. It's the shared knowledge that sometimes words aren't necessary. Sometimes just being in the presence of another person, knowing they're on the same wavelength, is all the communication you need. In the quiet, deep thinkers find peace, and in that peace they find connection. Deep thinkers often live in a world that moves too quickly for them, a world obsessed with instant opinions, fast solutions, and surface-level satisfaction. In a society where noise and speed are celebrated, deep thinkers find themselves struggling to keep up. It's as if the world around them is constantly running a race, and they're trying to understand the why of it all, while everyone else is focused on the how. They aren't interested in quick fixes. They don't crave the superficial, the flashy, or the fleeting. Instead, they crave substance, meaning, depth. It's not that they can't enjoy a good joke or a light conversation, but they're always aware that there's something more. It's like looking at a beautiful painting and knowing that beyond its surface, there's a hidden story, a deeper layer, a truth just waiting to be uncovered. And that's where deep thinkers live. In the layers, in the why, in the spaces where most people don't look because they're too busy racing through life to notice. But living in this way isn't always easy. It often feels like swimming upstream in a river that's pulling everyone else in the opposite direction. While the world celebrates speed and productivity, deep thinkers are more interested in slowness. They prefer to let things unfold naturally, to savor moments and emotions, to reflect before responding. This can make them seem out of place, even slow to others. But what people don't realize is that deep thinkers aren't slow. They're just intentional. Every decision, every conversation, every relationship is considered, weighed, and examined before they dive in. It's not indecisiveness, it's mindfulness. In a world of fast takes and quick judgments, deep thinkers sometimes feel like they don't belong. They can get frustrated by how easily people jump to conclusions without considering all the angles, how they can dismiss something or someone with a few shallow words without ever pausing to understand the deeper context. It's not just that deep thinkers want to be heard, it's that they want to be understood. They want others to see the world the way they do, to appreciate the complexity and beauty of everything that lies beneath the surface. But that's the beauty of being a deep thinker. They do see the world differently, and that difference is a gift. They see the patterns others miss, they feel the connections that are invisible to most, and they understand the nuances that make the world so intricate. It's in those details, those quiet moments of reflection, that deep thinkers uncover truths about themselves, about others, and about the world. They find meaning in things that might seem insignificant to others. An old photograph, a quiet conversation, a moment of solitude. To them, these are the things that make life rich. Deep thinkers may never fit neatly into the fast-paced world around them, but that's because they're not meant to. They don't live for speed, they live for depth. They don't rush to conclusions, they take their time to understand. And in a world that's constantly rushing, there's something beautiful in their ability to pause and reflect, to question and explore, to dig deeper and look longer. Because in the end, deep thinkers know that life isn't about collecting answers. It's about asking the right questions, feeling the complexities, and allowing the journey to be as meaningful as the destination. And maybe that's the real gift of being a deep thinker. In a world that demands productivity and quick fixes, they're the ones who remind us that there's value in stillness, in questioning, in slowing down enough to truly see. They teach us that depth isn't a burden, it's a gift. And in a world that's often too loud and too fast, that gift is more important than ever.